Welcome back to the Joe Miller Show, KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM. We have with us Kelsey Harkness. She's a news producer at the Daily Signal, and she broke a story last week on another business adversely affected by the Gaystapo. We talked about several times in this program over the last several weeks a number of Christian business owners that have been adversely impacted by those that want to enforce upon them violation of conscience. We've talked about the baker up in Oregon, and, of course, flower arrangers, photographers all across the country getting hit at the pizzeria in Indiana. Kelsey, I want to welcome you to the Joe Miller Show. Thank you for being willing to talk about this other example of businesses that are under the gun.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Joe.
So this case out of Oregon, just to kind of segue into the case that you're going to talk about, we talked about it this past week, and one of the things that really struck me in looking over some of the news about what happened with the baker in Oregon who, there were a gay couple that came, asked the bakery to provide them with a pro-homosexual birthday cake. The bakery, owned by Christians, they declined. Of course, then there was a subsequent action with the Human Rights Commission there, I believe is what it was called. An administrative law judge proposed a $135,000 fine. There was a picture taken of the bakery owner and her husband in a car. And this is a recent picture. I mean, it's after all this stuff went down. And she was crying. And I thought when I saw that, this is not just a matter of standing on principle, not just a matter of free exercise. There's a real human component to this that a lot of people don't realize, where people are losing their livelihoods over simply remaining true to their religious convictions. Tell us a little bit about this new case that you wrote about last week for the Daily Signal.
Yeah, well, that's a great point you make. I think we often forget about these seemingly political cases. It's real family and real people being affected. So just last week, out of Iowa, actually, there had been a little talked about, little reported on lawsuit that the story ran similar to the bakers in Oregon who refused to make a cake for a wedding, which is they actually did serve gays on many occasions, just not for anything that is linked to some sort of religious ceremony like a wedding. Same thing with this couple out of Iowa. They turned this old church into a restaurant, a wedding venue, a bistro, and a photo gallery. And in 2013, a gay couple asked them to rent out the venue for their wedding. And when they rent out their facilities, they're the ones preparing all the food, making all the flower arrangements, making sure every detail is perfect. And this is a Mennonite couple. They are very, very religious, and said because of those beliefs, they could not participate. They could not host a same-sex wedding. 24 hours after what they say is politely declining to serve this gay couple, they were slapped with a lawsuit. They ended up, after years of litigation, they ended up settling for $5,000. The gay couple originally asked for $10,000 due to emotional damages. But what really hurt them is after that lawsuit happened, they had to exit the wedding business completely because they thought they were going to get set up. The second a gay couple called them and they said, no, we can't do your wedding, they thought they would be slapped with a lawsuit and get fined even more. So now, a few years later, their business without the wedding industry basically went to shambles, and they're being forced to close.
So the law that they alleged the lawsuit alleged they violated, was it just an emotional distress thing, or were they alleging some sort of violation of a human rights provision in Iowa State or the local ordinance that governed them?
Yeah, it's an Iowa law saying you can't discriminate against someone based on their sexual orientation. It runs very similar to the same law that the Kleins outside of Oregon were charged with violating. And what's interesting about these laws is that when you break an administrative law, the case goes to an administrative court. And an administrative court is very different from a normal court system that we see on TV with a normal judge and jury. A lot of times the people in charge of making decisions about A, whether or not you broke the law, and B, how much you should be fined, are elected officials. And that's a clear conflict of interest that you have someone making judgments on these kind of cases that are, clearly very politically aligned with one party. And often that party, when it comes to these human rights, anti-discrimination laws, those parties are often on the left.
Well, the administrative law judge in Oregon, it turns out that his office actually was involved in communications with gay activists up until the decision he issued, reflecting not just the principle of ex parte contact, in other words, communicating with a side that had an interest in the outcome of the case and not disclosing it, but also the real political bias that that particular judge may have had. And, of course, this whole move toward the bureaucratic model is very, very disturbing, at least as far as adjudication of this stuff goes. A lot of people think, well, it's just money, it's not a criminal prosecution, but this is people's livelihoods. This was the issue that shut them down, right?
Yeah, well, not only you have these lawsuits that, you're being charged in this Iowa case, it was $5,000 they agreed to settle. In Oregon, it was $135,000. We've really seen the fines vary dramatically from state to state, but what ends up also impacting them just as much as, if not more, is the effect on their business. I mean, in this particular Iowa case, critics who would say they should have just served the couple and let the free market decide whether or not they made the right decision of whether or not to serve this gay couple. Well, what's interesting is the family in Iowa says this wasn't a decision by the free market. This wasn't them just boycotting our venue. This was the state forcing us out of the wedding industry completely, because if we chose to be in the wedding industry, we would be forced to participate in same-sex weddings that we didn't believe in.
Now, one of the things that the co-owner, Richard, joked about was that they did not get the type of response that Chick-fil-A got. You would think in Iowa, being a fairly conservative state, that people would have rallied behind this business. Has there been any reaction to what happened? Again, this article just came out, just got national exposure last week. But is there any action on the ground in Iowa to modify the law or to provide some sort of religious freedom clause that would give businesses security that if they choose to not do things because of deeply held religious beliefs, they won't be persecuted in this way?
Well, you're right that Iowa tends to be more of a conservative state than some others that we've seen these cases arise from. And the reason why we didn't hear about this case for a while is because they were barred from being able to discuss it in media while the case was under open litigation. But I think that's what this couple said really hurt them, and it actually drove his wife, Richard's wife, into what she calls the darkest depression she's ever been in, because she felt completely isolated by her community, and they really didn't have any supporters coming out to defend what they did in their decision. And so I think that they felt very alone. They didn't get this Chick-fil-A response that you saw, with Oregon bakers. They had a GoFundMe account, raised thousands of dollars within one day in a show of support for their decision. But this Iowa couple has really flown under the radar, and it has impacted their family, especially in a state where you have the people running for president of the United States right now will go to Iowa and discuss. They'll bring up the Oregon bakers when they talk about religious liberty, and no one even realizes that this pretty important case occurred in their own state, in the state that they're visiting right now in Iowa, and it's just being completely ignored.
That's interesting. The owners, it says in your article, don't blame the homosexual community for shutting them down, but rather the state of Iowa. It does seem that if the state is really driving the chain on this, that there could be a political answer to what's happened here.
Well, again, that goes back to them feeling like it wasn't just people boycotting their business that resulted in them having to shut down. It was the government bullying them out of being able to offer services in the wedding industry, because that was their biggest source of income, hosting weddings. And when the state of Iowa has a law that says you are forced to provide your wedding services to same-sex couples regardless of your religious beliefs, they felt they didn't have a choice and were forced out of the industry. So they really make the argument this wasn't a decision by the free market. We don't blame the LGBT community, although they do feel bullied by them. They're not faulting them. They're faulting the state for making a law that would put them in this situation to begin with.
Kelsey, I appreciate your insights on this. News producer for the Daily Signal. Great story. Hopefully the former owners can go out, spread the word about what they've experienced so others can take defensive actions. It is clearly the gay lobby that's pushing these laws that are putting people in these positions. It's important that if you're concerned about this, that you get active, repeal those laws in your state. If you have those type, pressure your legislators to do it. If in states that don't have those laws, keep them from being enacted. Again, Kelsey, thank you so much for giving us insight on this story. Keep up the good work and getting the good news out.
It was great to be with you.
Stay with us, the Joe Miller Show. Be back after these messages.